Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever had relationship difficulties or struggled with love, sex, or heartache, then do we have the show for you. Today we'll be talking with Dr. Sue Johnson, groundbreaking researcher, author, clinical psychologist, and leading innovator in the field of couple therapy. She's the primary developer of emotional-focused couples therapy, EFT, and the best-selling author of Hold Me Tight, and her latest book, Love Sense, the revolutionary new science of romantic relationships. Today we're going to get down and dirty, talking about the tough stuff, what love is, what it isn't, how to cultivate love, and what to do when love's gone wrong. That plus survival of the nurtured over survival of the fittest, why attachment's a good thing, oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, why happy rats do the backstroke, and why we have things backwards when it comes to sex. Well, welcome to the show, Sue. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, sure. Of course.
Woo! Okay, before we dive right in, I've got to ask, is it great sex that builds strong relationships or strong relationships that builds great sex?
Oh, I think it goes both ways. I think they go together because from the new science point of view, sex is a potent bonding behavior. I think we've always known that. That's why we call it making love. So they go together. But if you have to choose which direction, surprise, surprise, our research and all the new research on attachment and adult bonding says you need to start with a good relationship. And that's the best way to move into great sex. You can sometimes have great sex and it's kind of compartmentalized. You know, it's kind of like, it's like a bubble. Mm-hmm. You can manage to connect on that level, but it doesn't mean that you have great intimacy. And most people really talk about the fact that if they're happy in their relationship, their sex life is kind of accounts for maybe 20% of their satisfaction. If they're unhappy and they're not having sex, of course, it starts to have big impact because people start to feel rejected. So it's kind of a complex question you just asked, actually.
So we'll dive into that a little bit more then later in the show. We'll have a whole section on sex here. Before we do that, let's start with the tough stuff. You say at the beginning of your book that this book is a warning, a revelation, and a promise. Yes. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that in the last 15 years, basically, really social scientists, developmental psychologists, social psychologists, neuroscientists, and people like me, I'm a clinician, have really cracked the code of love. And that has enormous promise in it. If there's one thing people in civilized societies have always agreed about, it's that romantic love is this sort of mystery. Mm-hmm. You fall in, you fall out. You know, there's nothing you can do. And what we've really started to understand is, no, it's nowhere near as mysterious as that. Just like everything else in our world, science can really start to sort of tie it down. And that means, hey, what you understand, you can shape. So we have the promise of shaping, be able to shape and understand our really most precious relationships. All right, the warning is that all the evidence is that we're living in a lonelier world, mm-hmm. that we're making our relationships incidental rather than a priority. And all the evidence is that that's about the worst thing we can do for our mental health, physical health, happiness, our families, everything. It's like a huge mistake to turn away from the fact that we are basically bonding animals and social animals. We have to take that into account if we're going to live well.
So if I get right back to you on text, I've got to take care of some other stuff here. Text. That might not be the way to go.
No, that may not be the way to go. You know, it's like when people say to me, well, I have 2,000 friends on Facebook. I feel like say, no, you don't.
Oh, no.
And if you're on Facebook that much, you probably don't have any friends because you're looking at your phone while you're talking to your sweetie. Mm-hmm. You know, I watch couples having dates in restaurants. here in my home city in Canada, and it's really, I want to tell you from my researcher point of view, it's weird. They're not making face contact. They're not really listening to each other. They're double dipping. They're touching on their partner for a moment, and then they're turning to their phone. And it's from my point of view, it's not good. It's really not good.
It reminds me of Dr. Spock in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Or Spock in Star Trek, and he's always looking at his, I think they called it a tricorder. And so it's a tricorder date is what you're talking about.
That's right. That's right. And, the irony is that we're getting in a lonelier and lonelier society when we're more and more clued into technology and distracted by technology from relationships. The irony is that for the first time ever, we actually have a way of helping people understand relationships and make them better. So there's kind of a huge irony there, and that's why I had to write that book. I just had to write that book.
So let's start at the very beginning, because you said something I think really important here. We have cracked the code. You have cracked the code. Researchers have cracked the code on love. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, let me give you a bit of context because it sounds sort of over the top, okay? Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is that it started about 50 years ago, ironically, with an uptight, aristocratic Englishman. Who's going to crack the code of love? Is
this John Bowlby?
Yes. And John Bowlby started to study widows and orphans after World War II, mm-hmm. and he started to look at how much pain they were in. And he started to try and understand their pain. And that led him to looking at the bonds between mother and infant, and to then looking at adolescents and looking at adults, and coming up with this whole concept of the fact that the most important thing for human beings is to find connection with another person they can depend on. And he says that's the most powerful motivator in our species, more powerful than sex or aggression.
So that love is survival of the species, not survival of the fittest.
Love, well, let me play with what you just said, okay?
Yes.
Love, according to attachment, and he didn't really apply it to adults. Mm-hmm. The team, my colleagues, the group that I've been involved in really did that starting about 1990, somewhere in the 1990s. But, what we basically say and what I say in Love Sense is that love is not a mixture of sex and sentimentality. It's an ancient, wired-in survival code that's designed to keep the people you count on close to you. And that is wise, and it's a strong strategy that has stood our species well all through time. It is not some people say, being needy is you should be able to pick love up, leave it, or take it. You should be self-sufficient. What Bowlby said is, no, there's no such thing as a self-sufficient human being. That's not true. That's just not the way your brain is wired. So this is a huge revolutionary. Can I give you an example?
Yes.
Yes, I could give you an example. Let me give you a dramatic one. We work with a lot in my institute here in Ottawa, and my colleagues all over North America work with a lot of trauma survivors. We work with a lot of vets. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote an article for my local newspaper last week, and what I basically said is the Canadian military are having trouble because so many vets are committing suicide. And their answer to that is to give the vets better drugs or to give the vets sort of little individual interventions. And what I basically said in the article is, you're missing the boat. If you want to stop the vets from committing suicide, if you want to help them with their PTSD, the most powerful thing you can do is educate their wives about PTSD, and educate their wives and educate the vets, which you can do actually quite easily. We know how to do it, in how to be there for each other, how to come together and calm down the vet's nervous system, and have the vet be able to turn to his wife when his ghosts come to him in the middle of the night. And vet after vet after vet that we work with with them individually and in couples. We do an educational group for vets called Hold Me Tight. We adapted it for them. And what we find is that the most powerful way of calming down a human nervous system and bringing it back into balance is to, in that moment of upset or terror or anxiety, to have someone they trust standing there beside them and to teach that person how to give them comfort and support them. So we don't do that. We don't even help the partners of the vets understand what's going on in PTSD. So it's a good example, but if you like, I'll talk to you about a brain scan study we did.
Okay.
Because
that is a beautiful example, and I think that's important because that is a modern problem that's happening with. It's huge. I don't know the statistics, but it's massive. How many people are coming back, and we're trained that you hold that in. You be the rock. You don't show weakness.
That's right. And I think people in general believe that. And one of the big kickbacks against the science I'm talking to you about, the whole thing, is that for years, and I still get it, I stand up and present, and the things I present have got hundreds of. I'm not just standing up and telling stories or giving opinions or anecdotes. You know, I'm giving things that have been substantiated again and again and again. And what people say to me is, no, adults they're not supposed to be needy. They're not supposed to need other people. And if they do need other people, they're somehow immature or weak. My response is, that's just a mistake. Mm-hmm. If you look at strong, creative, resourceful, resilient people, the pattern is that they always tell you that they have strong, connected relationships with other people. That is how we are wired. We are wired to be able to not live in isolation. Emotional isolation is highly traumatizing for human beings, and it'll trigger us into depression and anxiety just like that.
For some reason, I'm picturing a gorilla, and I'm picturing a very strong gorilla, and a very strong gorilla has all these other gorillas around them.
That's right. And when the very strong gorilla sees something strange coming into the forest, if he's an intelligent gorilla, he says to his buddy, "Hey, what's that? What do you think of that?" And they say to each other, "Well, let's go together and have a look at it and see what it is." It's the idiot gorilla who says, "Hey, what's that? I'm going to go over there all by myself and defeat it." You know, that's just dumb. You know, it's so. This new science has lots of very revolutionary things to say, but I think they're things that when people really think about them and listen to them and sort of try them on, mm-hmm. they know in their heart and their bones that we know other people, that we need other people, that turning to other people is an incredible, intelligent, resourceful, strong thing to do, not somehow an admission of defeat. You know.
It's so funny. When I was growing up, one of the things in my childhood scarred memories, we all have them, is my mom read this book, and I haven't read this book personally, so I shouldn't really pick on it, but it was called Tough Love.
Yeah.
And the idea was stand on your own 2 damn feet.
That doesn't make tough people. That makes deprived people. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that you said just now about the old idea of evolution theory mm-hmm. is that Darwin actually said it's all about the survival of the fittest. He never said that.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
that was actually one of his rivals. If you look at the theory of evolution, and if you look at all the stuff on adult attachment, mm-hmm. what really stands out is it's the survival of the most nurtured. I'll give you a good example. Yeah, well, we're talking about love relationships, but I'll give you a good example. In Canada, we have a wonderful researcher called Michael Meany in Montreal, and what he found was that little rats that were soothed and calmed and licked and protected and cuddled by their mothers, mm-hmm. their nervous systems just were much less reactive to stress. It's like they grew up in a safer world, and their nervous systems have got this kind of resilience to them. They're not so reactive. Whereas the rats that grow up with a mother who just ignores them and does the tough love, a tough love rat mummy, right? Yeah. Well, those tough love rat mummies, basically what they're doing is they're taking the nervous systems of their little ones and tuning them so that the little one is vigilant for danger every minute, and their nervous system is always waiting to be strung out by stress. That's not good.
So
you do that for a few years, you're in trouble.
These are the rats that where you wanted to give them Mai Tais and let them do the backstroke.
Yes, I remember that joke. When I was writing the book, that's right. The happy little rats that have been groomed by their mummies, or I have this image of them doing backstrokes and drinking Mai Tais. That's right. But the other ones are all waiting, like, where's the danger? Where's the danger? And some of us live like that. And it just results in all kinds of chronic stress.
So what you were mentioning earlier, a brain scan that might be of interest?
Yes. Well, basically, I'm a couples researcher. For the last 30 years, I've been developing a very effective intervention for couples. We work with families too. And it's got about the best research in the whole field right now. We've got about 17 really positive studies that show that we know how to help couples move out of distress and into, which is more important in some ways, into secure, loving attachment, and our results last. So right there, we're pretty cutting edge in terms of, helping people with relationships. And
I want to dive right in and go, so tell me what you got.
Well, I think the reason we get those results, we get about 70 to 73% of couples in our most rigorous studies moving totally out of distress. And we get about 86% of couples telling us that they are significantly improved. And don't forget that these are short-term studies. These are like, you could have been practicing being distressed for 30 years, and you can come in and we will see you usually at the most about 20 times, but often less than that, sometimes as little as 8. And we can help you create those kinds of changes. So that's pretty dramatic right there. And, we've trained a lot of therapists in EFT over the last few years. There's a lot of EFT communities and centers where therapists get together and learn EFT all over North America. But, the brain scan thing is that I usually do outcome studies with couples. I don't usually do brain scans, but my colleague Jim Cohn at the University of Virginia, he got together with me. And so in one of our studies, when we were showing that we could not only make people happier and more satisfied, we could actually change this attachment, this ability to reach for another person and bring them close and calm your nervous system down and get this loving connection that we all long for. We showed that we could actually do that. As part of this study, we put the women in the study who came in saying they were distressed in their relationship, they couldn't turn to their partner, they didn't feel safe with their partner. We put them in a brain scan machine, and we told them that when you see this X in front of your face, you'll be shocked on your feet.
Oh, this is the women's apt exercise. I was hoping it wasn't. Oh.
Yes, it was. Yes. So what we did was we left the women alone in the machine before EFT. This is before treatment.
They're sweating it out.
We left them alone in the machine, and when they saw the X and they thought there was a chance they would be shocked. They weren't shocked every time. There was just a chance they would be shocked, okay? Yeah. Sometimes we shocked them, sometimes we didn't. So when they saw the X, their brains went berserk. When we actually shocked them, they said it was very painful. If we got a stranger to come in and hold their hand, they, when they saw the X, their brains would go berserk. They said the shock was painful. When their partner held their hand, they saw the X, their brain went berserk, the shock was painful. The partner didn't make any difference. The partner...
This is if there was a problem in the relationship, then the partner made no difference.
That's right. If they were insecurely attached to that partner, if they didn't have a secure bond, the partner made no difference. The partner wasn't a powerful safety cue. In fact, actually, when couples come in, they talk about the other person as a danger cue. right? He's going to attack me. He's going to criticize me. He's going to abandon me. She's going to reject me, right? They're danger cues for
This doesn't sound like survival of the nurtured.
But then we give them EFT. We gave most of these folks got 20 sessions of EFT because they were pretty distressed, okay? And we leave them alone in the machine after EFT. Same thing happens. They see the ex, their brain goes berserk. They say the shock hurts. We get a stranger to hold their hand after EFT. Their brain goes a little bit less berserk, but nothing significant, and they say the shock hurts. Where after EFT, when their partner holds their hand, they see the ex, nothing happens in their brain, and they say that the shock is uncomfortable. So that is the power of secure connection with another person to change the way you perceive threat. It's not about controlling the threat more, because their prefrontal cortex, the control centers in their brain, weren't lit up. So it's not about controlling the threat more. It was literally that they perceive threat differently, you know, and that's a very fascinating result. It's not Hallmark cards and flowers. It's not sentimentality. It's about human beings' profound impact on each other, on each other's nervous system, on, you know, I mean, the way you interact with your partner impacts your nervous system, the hormones whizzing through your blood, your heart rate. It impacts things like whether oxytocin is going through your brain to calm you down.
Let's stop right there. Oxytocin, the cuddle hormone.
That's oxytocin, the cuddle hormone. The interesting thing about oxytocin is it provides a direct link between sex and attachment, sex and bonding, because it's not accident that when you think of your sweetie or when you have an orgasm with your sweetie, you're flooded with oxytocin. And what oxytocin does is it calms down your amygdala, the fear center in your brain. It just sort of tranquilizes your nervous system.
That's a good way to put it.
It gives you balance, emotional balance. And it does really neat stuff. Like, it actually helps you read the cues on other people's faces more accurately in those moments.
When there was a study, or you're talking about in the book, and even I was fascinated by this stuff called liquid trust. You were saying you could order online oxytocin, but that people who are given oxytocin suddenly can read people's faces and emotions better.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm thinking of kids who can't read emotions oftentimes, how that could help.
But, you know, it's a bit tricky, because can you imagine being in a couple relationship and in a fight with your partner and you realizing that you're all defensive and that you've got walls around you so you can't read anybody's cues at that point, and then saying, hold on a minute, and snorting this stuff up your nose, you know, and then turning and saying to your partner, oh, sweetie, I love you. And your partner says, you can go to hell. That's the oxytocin talking. It doesn't really work, really, but they're selling it on the internet anyway.
So this is such a stressed out world, and we are getting zapped, literally and figuratively, when we step out the door, when we go to work, when we drive down the street. And if we had somebody on our side that we really feel is on our side, that's huge.
That's huge.
How do we start down the path to cultivating that?
You start down the path by, first of all, understanding what love is about, and we can do that now. That it's an attachment bond, that it's actually a version of the bond between mother and child. It's an adult version. Adults don't need their main attachment figure beside them all the time physically. They do that with their mind. They carry that person in their mind, right? And you start out by learning about love and accepting that's a truth. The example I give is, you know, I'm a psychologist, so I know a lot of strategies. And years ago, I developed an airplane phobia, which is terrible because I'm on a plane all the time. And I tried every strategy known to man, you know, meditation, imaging, drugs, you know, everything, okay? But the thing that worked the best, and of course, I study attachment, so the thing that worked the best is, as the plane was going down the runway, I would listen to my husband's voice in my head.
Beautiful.
And my husband would say, "It's okay, sweetie. Would I let you do anything dangerous? You're going to go up in the air, have fun, and then you're going to come back home to me, and I'll be here." And my whole nervous system goes, "Oh, that's safe, that's safe, that's safe, that's calming, that's safe, that's safe." And then I'm up in the air. So we use our attachment, the people that are closest to us, as an incredible resource. Our brains are wired to do that. Our brains are wired to do that. And and it even affects. I'll give you a beautiful example. It even affects something that you would think was kind of totally set and nothing to do with love, like visual perception. Okay, if I take you and I put you in front of a hill and I ask you to calculate the height of the hill, your brain does a little calculation about how hard it would be to climb that hill.
Yep.
Right? So you'll calculate it. If I say to you, would you bring your best friend or your partner to stand beside you, your eyes actually calculate the height of the hill as lower.
The mountain becomes a molehill.
That's right. The mountain becomes, that's a great way of putting it. The mountain becomes a molehill. That's right.
We need to change the adage. How does the adage go? Behind every great man, and so we'll say behind every great person, or next to every great person and everything they've achieved, is probably somebody loving them and somebody who they love.
That's right. Like if you look at somebody like Winston Churchill, I just read his biography over the summer, amazing man. He had the most terrible upbringing. His mother couldn't even be bothered to write him letters, for goodness sake, let alone nurture him. But he found this incredible relationship with his wife. And, and by the way, he also had a nanny that he loved very, very much. And he kept the picture of that nanny in his bedroom until he died. Okay. And so if you look at Winston Churchill, he was an incredibly belligerent man. He was an oppositional man, but he had relationships with people. He valued relationships, and his relationship with his wife was his sort of safe haven, secure base. And that's what this research says. It says we need a few others on this planet to give us safe haven to go to and a secure base to go out from into the world where we know they have our back. And when we have that, we are stronger in every way. We explore more, we take more risks, we're more confident. Lovely study with young career women. Young career women, this is by a researcher called Feeney. Young career women who turned to their partner for support and who confided in their partner were more confident out in the world, took more risks, felt more sure of themselves, and reached their career goals faster. So there's research study after research study on this. Our main way of dealing with the world when it gets too big for us and when we are aware of how vulnerable we are is to reach for another human being. And if we know we can do that and that other human being is going to respond, then that makes all the difference in the world.
So let's flip that on its head, because what you're saying makes a lot of intuitive sense, but we're also living in a time, although you point out that the statistics may be changing on this, where long-term relationships seem to be almost the exception rather than the rule. It sounds like this time, right now we need it the most, and we're getting it the least. So a lot of people listening are probably in relationships where they're not feeling very loved, supported, or empowered by their spouse. How do we begin to shift this around?
Well, we start to understand what our own attachment needs, that we do indeed need this emotional connection. And I just used a very powerful word, emotional connection. You can I get couples who tell me, we're roommates. We can collaborate. We know how to take out the garbage together. We even know how to parent together on some level, but basically we're roommates. And we know how to solve problems together, but something's missing. And what's missing is the main element in a secure bond. And we know what it is. The main element in a secure bond is emotional attunement and responsiveness. That is the main element. And people don't know that. They don't understand what's going on. They get caught in these dreadful fights. We know a lot about relationship distress now. The most popular fight in North America in a couple is that they're talking about differences, but really what happens is the differences start to take on a dangerous threat to the bond.
Can you give an example? Let's
yes.
John and Sue, for example.
John and Sue comes in, and John says, he comes in from work and he says, I've told you before, I hate when I come into this house and there's toys and everything all over the place. I've told you before, I don't want this. Can't you even clean it up? If you don't care about my feelings at all, if you did, you'd clean it up. Now listen, they're not talking about toys. He's talking about whether she cares about his needs and his feelings. He's talking about attachment. And she says, don't talk to me in that tone of voice. She says, and that's again, it's not about, you think the fight is about toys or cleanliness
walled
habits.
herself up.
It's about the connection. The big fights are always about the multi-million-dollar question. A-R-E, are you there for me? Can I count on you? Are you accessible? A, can I reach you? Are you responsive to me? Do you care about my needs? Are you engaged with me? Will you come and be with me? A-R-E, are you there for me? So she says, don't talk to me in that tone of voice. I'm really tired. I'm not going to have this conversation. And she walks off. And he follows her and says, I've been working all day. How can you do this? You're impossible. And it grows and grows and grows. And he pushes and pokes and demands to get a response from her. And the more he does that, the more dangerous he looks to her, because she picks up on the anger and frustration in his voice. She withdraws. And the more she withdraws and protects herself and defends, the more he pushes. And what it's all about is this dreadful thing about disconnection. It's basically a seeking for reconnection, a seeking to find this safe haven. But they get stuck in this horrible disconnection. So we teach couples to look at relationships and see the dances they get caught in. The dances they get caught in together that end up with this dreadful feeling of disconnection that is literally painful for our brains, by the way. We can talk about that in a second if you like. It's literally painful. We get stuck in disconnection. We don't know how to come out of it. We don't know how to reach for each other and go back into that place of emotional responsiveness. And the emotional responsiveness is the solution to the problem. When we help people become more emotionally tuned in and responsive to each other, they can solve all kinds of they can have all kinds of differences. They can solve all kinds of problems because they feel safe with each other.
So what
they can share, they can confide.
John comes home, they're just starting down this process. Is there a first step he can take when he comes in the house and things are as they are? I keep using the word are. You've planted that in my head.
Yeah, well, we're human beings, so this isn't foolproof. We can't always, right? So John probably comes home even after EFT, or one of our Hold Me Tight education programs, and like, what the hell? Look at the mess in the house. So he still does that, okay? And maybe she still says, what the hell are you doing coming in here yelling at me? I don't want to talk to you. Maybe that still happens. But here's the difference after EFT. John goes away for a minute, and then he comes back and he says, wait a minute. That wasn't how I wanted that to go. Actually, driving home, I was thinking about how important it is to me that I get to come home to you. And I'm stressed out. I'm totally stressed out. And I did come in and sound angry. And this must be one of these times that we talk about in Sue's office where we get into what we call the spiral. And I don't want to go there. I want to tell you, the toys do annoy me. But really, I just wanted to come home and connect with you and I just want to know that the things I care about matter to you. So then he's come to her in a whole different way. He reaches for her and he doesn't push, and she doesn't turn away. The three main moves in the dance of love are reach, push for connection, push, I will make you respond to me, control, or turn away and withdraw. Those are really the three moves in the dance. When he comes to her like that, she doesn't turn away. She experiences it as an invitation. When couples are really distressed, they can't turn and move like that. They don't know how to do that reparation dance. And even if one person does it, if John does it in a really distressed couple, when he tries it, she doesn't trust him. So when he does that nice invite, she says, yeah.
Dangerous.
Now you're trying to suck up to me. You can go to hell. So we help couples move past these responses. And in a good relationship after EFT, she will accept his invitation. She'll say, sweetie, it's really hard for me when I've been with the kids all day and you come home and the first thing you do is yell at me. It's really hard and it hurts my feelings. And he says, I get it. And they hug. What I want you to notice is that's on an emotional level. We often try to solve relationship problems on a very cognitive level, a very instrumental level, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for her to say, okay, I'll pick up the toys. If it means getting you off my back, I'll pick up the toys. Now, she might pick up the toys, but look at what's happened to the relationship. In relationship terms, that doesn't work because she's still upset, hurt, and withdrawn. Yes?
Well, I was going to, and I like that. You're talking heart over head. Very, very basic level. We're not going to think our way through this.
That's one of the things we do in EFT. We help people understand their emotions, and we help people learn about their emotions and how to move into this emotional channel in a constructive way that really helps them. And at this point, after 30 years, we're getting pretty damn good at it. We train a huge amount of therapists in North America and all over the world every year how to do this. We've pretty much got a way of helping people, even people who have never seen a good relationship. Maybe they've never even seen what a good relationship looks like. Their parents didn't show them, and we can really help them move into it. Longing is wired in. The longing for this kind of emotional connection is wired in.
What would you say is a hold me tight conversation?
A hold me tight conversation is the transformative conversation that we have found transforms relationships in our therapy and results in good results at the end of therapy, couples out of distress. And when we check on them 2 or 3 years later, they're still in this state. In a hold me tight conversation, people can not only step out of their negative patterns that I've been talking about, they can turn to each other, they can reach for each other, they can risk showing their vulnerability, they can talk about their fears. We all have them. We're all terrified of rejection and abandonment. Okay, that's just wired into your brain. You don't get to choose that. That's wired into you. People can talk about their fears in a way that invites their partner to help them with those fears, and they can talk about their attachment needs. So, a man who's been really withdrawn from his wife for the last 20 years can finally find the resources and feel balanced enough emotionally to turn to his wife and say, look, I do shut down. And the trigger for me is that look on your face. That's the thing that shuts me down. And when I see that look on your face, what I go into is, there you are, you see, I'm a failure. I'll never please her. It'll never work. I knew it would never work. I knew I was going to fail at this. And I get freaked out. I freeze. I get overwhelmed and freaked out. And you're right. I go behind a wall. And I didn't understand that when I shut down, I shut you out. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore because I'm lonely behind my wall. I want to be able to reach for you, and I want to be able to tell you what's happening with me, and I want you to give me a chance, because I don't always know the right thing to say or the right thing to do, but I want closeness with you. I don't want this wall anymore. So I want you to listen to me. Yeah. And our experience is it's quite a move. It's
one heck of a chess play.
It's one heck of a play. It's much more powerful than silly old James Bond doing his pout and his smooth voice and inviting you for a one-night stand. I mean, if James Bond came into my sessions, I think he'd be a mess, actually.
So let's segue from there. This is and before we wrap up, I'd like to take 5 or 10 minutes and let's talk about sex, because it sounds like we're a mess in this department.
Well, I think we've focused on the wrong. We've got things sort of backwards. I go to conferences and I'm quite unpopular in some ways because I say things that, my colleagues don't agree with very often. Mm-hmm. The whole new thing now is that if people are together for a long time, if you want to jazz up your sex life, what you're supposed to do is focus on novelty. You're supposed to focus on, new sexual positions. There's a great one. There's a great one in The Joy of Sex called "Wailing Monkey Clasping Tree," which I love the title. I don't care.
Wailing monkey clasping
tree. Yes,
quite the image.
But it's like the thing is where you've got to jazz up your sex life with novelty, with fantasy, sure you can do that, but that's not the royal route into optimal sex.
It sounds like I call that also the disease of the Moor, because if it's always a novelty, then you're always going to need the next novelty.
That's right.
That's the definition.
That's right. It's just ongoing, and the focus becomes on the novelty and the fantasy, not on the connection with the partner. What we know is that when people do EFT, they become more sexually satisfied with each other, and often we don't even talk to them about sex. Why? Because a relationship is a dance, and the music of that dance is emotional communication, and it's the same in bed. If you can become attuned, accessible, and responsive to your partner on an emotional level, that translates into the bedroom. You can become attuned, responsive, and connected with your partner physically and in bed. What we know is that securely attached folks are better at they can improvise, they can let go in sex, they can just let go and let themselves be immersed in the experience. They don't have to sort of choreograph everything. They're better at talking about their attachment needs. They feel safer with their partner. Mm-hmm. And when you feel safer on a very basic emotional level, that gives you the freedom to really explore and go into erotic play. The definition, I think I put it in Love Sense, the definition of passion that I like mm-hmm. is that passion is when bonding and sex come together. It's when you get a longing for connection that is twinned up with tuning into a partner emotionally and physically, tuning in and getting that kind of responsiveness. And that safety results in erotic play.
This is very different than Hollywood.
Hollywood is ridiculous, okay? Hollywood shows us these silly scenes, two people staring at each other, and 30 seconds later they're having perfectly simultaneous multiple orgasms. I mean, good sex is an enormous act of coordination. Mm-hmm. It's being able to tune into each other. It's, as I say to my folks here, it's at least as difficult as a couple putting together a piece of IKEA furniture together. And lots of luck really having it and keeping it over time if you can't move into this emotional channel. Your emotions are in your body. It's the same thing. The good point about this is, if we understand attachment and we understand how sexuality fits into attachment, what it basically means is over a long-term relationship, people say, can you keep passion? Now, you can't keep passion. You can't put it on ice and make it happen every time. You can't do anything. Nothing is like that. But you can find passion again and again and again. You can lose it and find it, lose it and find it over years. And we know that that's true. So this new science is really changing a lot of our basic ideas about what romantic love is about, what good sex is about. It's a whole new beginning.
Let me dive real briefly as we wrap things up here, or just before we wrap things up, onto a difficult subject that I think is more and more prevalent today than ever, which is pornography, online pornography, or the porn trap.
Yeah. It's fascinating and it's scary. If you had asked me, say, 6 or 7 years ago, if I believed in sex addiction, I would have said no. Now that is not even an issue, because I see the people all moving into my clinic here in Ottawa, and I talk to all my colleagues all over the world. It's becoming huge. And I think people just do not understand the negative consequences of it. We're having young men, for example, who can't get erections with real women because from the time they were 12 years old, they've conditioned their sexuality to only respond to a flat screen and to them masturbating to a flat screen. This is, we should take this seriously. We need to take this seriously. I mean, technology is so powerful and it's so accessible. It's starting to really change the most basic responses we have. And porn addiction wrecks marriages. People, and people don't understand. They say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not having an affair. I'm just typing. No, buddy, that's not true. Okay, but if you put it in attachment terms, what she's saying is you are having an affair because you give your sexuality, your involvement, your engagement, your attention to this flat screen, to these fantasy women on this flat screen, not to me. You don't come to bed with me. You sit at night and look at other women and fantasize about other women. And, she's right. He's focused and people become more and more focused on sex and orgasm as a tension release and as a release from negative thoughts or feelings, or as a quick high to get them out of negative thoughts and feelings. And they don't understand how insidious it is, how it takes over their lives to the point where it starts to replace their relationships with their partners, the time they spend with their kids. It's very insidious.
And it's rewiring their minds.
It's rewiring not only their minds, but their bodies. It's rewiring their sexual response, and it's taking people more into emotional isolation. And as a psychologist, that is, people talk about killing this planet in terms of, global warming. People talk about nuclear war. And I say to myself, yes, those things matter, but we really don't have to worry if we keep turning away from each other and lose the sense that our relationships, especially our most close relationships, are a priority, not just an option. We don't have to worry about those things. We're going to destroy each other. We're already into so much anxiety and depression. It's ridiculous. We will destroy ourselves because we neglect the most basic fact about human beings. They're social bonding animals.
So how do we begin? I've got to work on ending on a positive note. How do we begin? How do we take this? We're going to destroy ourselves.
Well, we read Love Sense. Of course, I'm going to say we read Love Sense. And we read the first book that I wrote called Hold Me Tight, which is really a kind of how-to for couples that came out of all the research that we've done on distressed relationships. You read those. You read about adult attachment, you start to learn. We start to become more aware. We start to learn, and we start to learn how we, about moments of disconnection and moments of connection and be aware of them. You know, I see couples who they know they're desperately unhappy, but if you talk to them, they don't even know why they're so angry, really. They don't even know why they're so cut off from their partner. They don't even know what's happening to them. So we have to educate people about relationships. We have to help people turn and hold each other tight. And I think we can do this. We have the knowledge now and the science. I think we can do this. So in a way, it's a hopeful message, but we have to learn about adult attachment, and we have to accept that we're social bonding animals and that we're vulnerable to other people, and other people are also our greatest source of strength.
Be open, be vulnerable, turn to others, and do it together.
That's right. Woo! We're stronger together.
I love it.
This has been a really fun...
I'm so glad you're liking it. I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Which is, what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Oh, well, of course, being with my husband in moments of connection, being with my kids. My son's coming home for Christmas, right? I'm so pleased he's coming. Dancing Argentine tango, which is also all about connection. It's all about attunement. And also watching a couple who came into my office just weeks ago, so confused and overwhelmed and unhappy, watching them right in front of me reach for each other and pull each other close. I come out of those sessions with just like, yes! Okay, it's that's what turns me on.
I love it. Where can people go to find out more and to find your book?
They can go to my website, drsuejohnson.com. There's lots of clips on there, me giving talks about the things we're talking about here. They can go to my website, or they can go to Amazon or any of their bookstores, Barnes & Noble, anywhere, to get Love Sense and get Hold Me Tight. Or they can even look on my website and go to my institute and look for a Hold Me Tight program, which they're taking off all over North America. They're usually done on a weekend. And you can go and find the educational version of EFT, a Hold Me Tight program, and find one in your community. We're going to educate people about this stuff. It's too precious to leave it on a shelf.
Woohoo! Well, we'll have links at inspirenationshow.com. We'll have links to all of this as well. We'll get you over to your websites. They'll be able to find your programs. Can't thank you enough for what you're doing and bringing some love to the world.
It's really been fun to talk to you.
So thank you so much, Sue.
Take care.
For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, hold me tight, get love sense, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you.
You are most welcome. That was actually a lot of fun.
Everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!